Hi guys, welcome to another episode. This is the part 2 of my 2011 Lexus RX450H review. In today's episode it's just going to be, it's a bit of a shorter one, just going over a bit more detail about the car itself. Last video was more about what I thought of the car and everything like that. It's just a bit more info about this particular spec car and everything. So just to sort of start off with a bit more detail about the hybrid system. So it's got quite a clever hybrid system. So below sort of about 45 miles an hour, if you're on the throttle very lightly, it will be an electric. On the dial there's 4 different sections of the power dial. It doesn't have a conventional rev counter, it has a power gauge. The lowest blue bit is charge, so that's when you're using regen braking. So the first part of your pedal when you're slowing down is actually applying the motors to get regen. It's only when you push a brake very hard, or if you're moving at low speed, so you haven't got much momentum, that you actually use brake pads. One of the reasons why hybrids don't go through brake pads or discs anywhere near as much. So yeah, that's the first part of the graph. The second part is split into two parts. Green, that's what's considered the eco part, as it were, and the first lower section of that is your electric threshold, as it were. So if you're below that and you're below the set speed thresholds, then it will be an electric. This is all assuming the engine's all up to temperature and everything, and you're not got too much load on it and things like that. But 9 times out of 10, if you're down in that part of the power gauge, then you'll be an electric, which is really good. Above that is your sort of general eco part of the rev range, and then above that you've got your power, and it just fluctuates depending on how hard you press the pedal, basically. That's the joy with the CVT. That's one of the reasons why the power is instant. Because however hard you press the pedal is ultimately how much power you get. You don't need to wait for the engine to get to peak power or peak torque or anything like that. It just is there, which is great. The switch between electric and hybrid, or electric and engine, is so smooth. It's very difficult to tell when it's switching between the two, and it will just do it automatically, unless you have the display up, like I have. You wouldn't necessarily know whether it's an electric or combustion engine, which is really, really impressive. There's no jolt, anything like that. Even when it has the bonus when you're pulling away at traffic. Obviously a lot of modern cars are start-stop, and that's by no means a new thing. But as soon as if you're an automatic, as soon as you move your foot, start to move your foot off the brake pedal, or if you're manual, as soon as you start to move your foot off the clutch, the engine kicks in, and you feel that jolt, and you hear it, and the lights dim and stuff like that. It just, to me, it's always seemed like a bit of a gimmick that's never really been executed very well. But in this, because it's got the electric, you can pull away an electric, and then if it feels your acceleration is enough to warrant the engine, it will automatically kick the engine in. And the these don't have conventional starter motors, so they don't sound like they're starting. It uses the front wheel drive motor to bump start the engine basically. So it's a very, very smooth and seamless transition, which is quite impressive really. And certainly for this age of car, I mean, even this age, 2011, this is 9 years old now. This isn't new technology. It's, you know, the Toyota Prius. That's basically the same technology. It's very, very impressive, and it's been well proven, well tested, and you know, they aren't number one on the reliability list for nothing. So sticking with the talking about hybrid stuff, it's got a EV mode where you can run it in all electric. Basically the same as, so I'm currently doing 30 miles an hour, just sitting, and it's all electric, no bother at all. If you're sat like this at constant speed, and you're not going up any big hills, it will deal with some hills, and you don't need to accelerate or anything like that, then it will do this for approximately sort of 2-ish miles. Obviously that does go down as the car gets older and the batteries start to degrade, but I mean, this is a 9-year-old car, and it will still do 2 miles like this, no problem. And that obviously doesn't sound like very much, certainly when you sort of compare it to modern EVs and stuff like that, but you've got to remember, you've got the engine there, and it charges the battery as it's driving, and you've got the regen braking, so although it will deplete the batteries in 2 miles, give it another mile and they'll be full again. So, you know, it's not the best. I think the range could do a bit better, and I think it is on the newer ones, but it's certainly adequate for, well, certainly for what I do. Occasionally I'll sit in a bit of traffic and it will cope fine with that, and I do a little bit of town driving in between the country road and motorway driving, and it copes with it fine. I very, very rarely find I'm flattening the battery. It always seems to have enough charge to do whatever I want to do with it, so it's absolutely fine. The one problem with it, well, two problems really, with the EV mode. Number one, which I know they've definitely fixed in the latest ones, to get into EV mode, you have to go into a menu on the dash and select EV mode. So it's not that easy. EV mode basically gives you a higher threshold for acceleration, so you can accelerate harder. Still not, I mean, you're not talking like Tesla acceleration or anything like that, just a little bit faster. So I sometimes use it, certainly if I'm in traffic, or if I'm at a drive-through or anything like that. It's great because you can just pull away, and you haven't got to, the engine's not going to be kicking in and then kicking back out again, like cutting in and out, because that's ultimately not good for an engine, cutting in and out. So forcing EV mode will mean that it will only cut the engine in if you try and accelerate fairly hard. It can be quite useful sometimes for pulling away at traffic lights. If you'll know you're pulling away at traffic lights and you're going to be going into an area where you're going to only be doing 30, you can get up to, typical, what was I talking about? Yeah, if it's very useful for if you're sat at traffic lights, you pull away at traffic lights, so you know you're going to be sat at 30 for a little bit once you've got up to speed. You can use it to get up to speed. It will then automatically cut out when you get to speed, and will just then, because you're only very lightly on the throttle, it will then automatically just stay in electric. So you can electric if you're a bit savvy about it. And you can also, the way the system works, it obviously has inbuilt parameters that have to be met for it to for actually just to kick in, just to be electric. So you can sort of almost trick it slightly. Sometimes it won't cut the engine out if you're just below the threshold. So if you just briefly lift off and then go back on, it will then just cut the engine out, and then you'll be in electric mode, and you'll then do the rest of that part of the road in electric until you need the power again. The other problem that I've seen with the EV mode in this, and I'm pretty sure they fixed it on certainly the latest one. I don't think they have on I think they did on the facelift or the next model to this. Is the cut-off speed for EV mode is 28 miles an hour. Obviously that can be quite frustrating if you want to sit at 30, because it will get to 28 miles an hour and then cut out. As I say, if you're sat at constant 30, that's fine, it will stay in electric. But if you're wanting to sort of speed up and slow down, and if you're in a bit of traffic, then it can be a bit, not annoying, but you know, one of those things, you know that it could have been better. It would have been better if it had a threshold that was higher. Certainly considering that the main electric threshold is set at about 45. So if you're under 45 miles an hour and very lightly on the throttle, it will be an electric. So it can do it. It's obviously all just to do with the outputs of the inverter and stuff like that, what that can cope with without overheating. There's obviously reasons why they've done it. But other than that, it's, as I say, I am hugely impressed with the EV mode in it, and the hybrid system in general. It works seamlessly. Never had any problems at all with it. As I was saying the other day, that coupled with the CVT, it just makes it a joy to drive, and you just don't have to think about anything. It's one of those, you just point and go. There's no thought goes into it at all. One of the other things I wanted to touch on a little bit, one of the reasons why I tend to buy big cars, and this one isn't quite, doesn't quite fulfil the, what do you call it, the criteria, is towing capacity. So the Range Rover had, obviously, bin Land Rover had full 3.5 ton towing capacity. It's great. I got my trade license, so it means that when I was driving it, when I was towing with it, I didn't need to even worry about what I was towing, because I knew that as long as I wasn't stupid, but I could sort of tow largely anything and not be overweight. This has only got a towing capacity, pretty sure it's 2 tons, but some places it is quoted as 2.1. So I need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure it's definitely at least 2 tons, but it might be 2.1. I'm just about to get a tow bar fitted to this, so I can tow a certain amount, but upon looking initially, I thought, because this is the air suspension one, so it's got the self-leveling air suspension, it looked like there's not actually any tow bars available for it. They all specify without self-leveling. However, upon looking, Witter, which apparently turns out owns Westphalia, they do one tow bar, which is suitable for this car. It's a detachable swan neck, which safety-wise isn't my first choice, but it's the only one available, so that's what I have gone for. And yeah, so that's being fitted, and actually, despite first thoughts, it's looking like it's actually ended up the same price as a normal one. So any kind of reason not to buy one of these in this spec, the SEL spec, is negated really. The one thing, so I spoke briefly about the differences between some of the specs last time. I spoke about the differences between the SEI and the SEL. There are more differences between the premium again. So basically, obviously, as you'd expect, the premium has everything the SEL has, but more. So it has radar cruise control, which also gives you assistive braking. It has child safety, impact protection knee airbags for front passengers. So basically, the differences between the SEL and the Premier are basically safety features, but the Premier does not have air suspension. The only one with air suspension is an SEL. The SEL also comes with, I didn't mention before, comes with wing mirror mounted camera so you can see the side of the car for parking up against curbs in parking spaces, which actually, although it's a bit gimmicky, is quite useful sometimes. If you're up against a curb in a car park or whatever, it's quite handy to see, or if you're in a multi-storey car park, and it's quite handy. They all come with reversing cameras, dead easy to use, works perfectly, really clear, and really useful. Parking sensors front and rear, obviously. Heated wing mirrors, heated rear window, all the usual stuff of a car of this sort of age. Nothing particularly special with regards to actual spec over any other car at this age. Cruise control is dead easy to use, really nice. I find some of the cruise controls can be a bit counterintuitive. The one on my 5 Series is, to me, counterintuitive. It works the wrong way as far as I'm concerned. My old Audi one was pretty good, so you know, and I know a lot of people don't tend to use cruise control, but I do. I use it an awful lot. So yeah, power close and open tailgate, which is again a bit of a gimmick, but quite nice sometimes. It's got auto memory seats, passenger side and driver side, as I've already said before. Heated and cooled seats, that's an SEL thing, and a premium thing. Also, when you start the car, depending on what thing you're in, it moves the steering wheel and the seat into your position. Just makes it a bit easier to get in and out. I mean, it's not a particularly difficult car to get in and out of. I would imagine that's more aimed at sort of the elderly customer, but it is very good. The leather and everything, the interior seems to be wearing very well. A couple of slight marks on the bolsters on this side, but no ripping or anything. I say this is now done 125,000. You know, when I get in it from work, I'm not necessarily clean, and it's so easy to wipe clean, as with all leathers are and that really. But it has lasted very well. Lots of cigarette points everywhere. There's some under the dash, there's some in the boot, in the rear here. It's also got huge amounts of cubby storage space. So in the center console, you've got aux, USB, that sort of stuff. You've got several little cubbies in here which can then be removed, and you can then get to the whole cubby access. There's a massive void under there because you don't have a longitudinal gearbox in there. There's loads of room. Then underneath where the transmission tunnel is, There's again another massive void for storage with another power socket, so that's really good. Yeah, nice cup holders, you know, all the usual stuff that you like to see in cars. Yeah, so I think that sort of covers everything really. Yeah, I've tried to keep this one a bit shorter, gone on a little bit longer than I was expecting, but I just wanted to sort of cover everything about the car and give people a bit of an insight into owning one, and if you're thinking about buying one, then definitely go for it. I've looked at the newer ones, so sort of 2017, 2018 plate. Very good price for what they are. Bear in mind, you know, like new, they're a 60 grand car. They're not cheap new. You could pick a sort of 3-year-old one up for about 30. But I would say, other than the couple of little tweaks, it's largely the same. The looks are vastly different. I think the looks are massively improved. I think these look too soft, too rounded, not aggressive enough for the size of the car really. The new ones are much better. They just have that much more aggressive stance to them, certainly in F Sport. But yeah, they're very similar inside. I mean, as you'd expect, it's the next couple of generations on. But yeah, when I looked at it, I didn't think, oh yeah, that's definitely 20 grand's worth of difference there. Some of the warranties as well aren't quite as good on the newer ones, and the tax tends to be more. So on this one, being a 2011 model, tax is only £140 a year, which you won't find on anything of this size. It really is good value when it comes to tax. I know from 2000, I think it was 2010 onwards, some of the bigger 4x4s were cheaper. They were back down at the sort of £300 a year mark rather than the £570 between 2006 and 2010. But still, you know, and you know, taxes, you pay it once a year and that, but it's still worthwhile saving if you're going to be keeping the car for a couple of years and that. And yeah, just overall, you know, if you're thinking of buying one, definitely go and look at one, definitely test drive one. They're very different to anything I've ever driven before, in a good way, and I would highly recommend one. And I will be getting another after this, after I've done with this one. 100%, really happy with it. So yeah, again, thank you for watching. You got any comments, leave them below. Good, bad, any advice, anything I should do different, anything else you want to see on the channel. I'm hoping to do a bit of an update on the Mini soon. That's now on the road. I've been driving it, just haven't had time to edit a lot of the videos, so hoping to do that soon. And yeah, I've got a transit camper van project which I've had for a year or so. So now I'm getting used to the whole YouTube thing. I might do some more on that as well. So yeah, if you could like and comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.